Hello everyone, welcome to Chinese Antique 101 from X-Wing's Antique Hunt channel. In the last video, we have shared the secret of the blue colors in the Chinese antique blue and white porcelain. And today we're gonna have a deep dive into a more colorful world, which is the Chinese enameled porcelains. And at the end of the video, you're gonna know the secret of how to tell the age of different kinds of enameled porcelain throughout history. Even though the overglazed or enameled ceramics were found in China more than 1,000 years ago, like this one in my hand, this is made from 800 years ago, Song dynasty in China. But today we're not going to talk about it. We're only going to be focused on those enamel porcelains made from Qing dynasty, 17th century and onwards. Because only from this period of time, the techniques of producing enameled porcelain became mature, and 99% of Chinese antique enameled porcelain you can find today are from 17th century and onwards. In today's video, we're gonna go through 4 different types of Chinese enameled porcelains. And many examples I use today, you can find them in my eBay shop down here. The first type of enameled porcelain is the Famille verte, which is also called Wucai in Chinese, meaning 5 colors. It is because only 5 typical colors were used on this type of porcelain, which are green, red, yellow, blue, and purple. The black color may also be used occasionally. The Wucai style were only popular in 17th century and almost disappeared in 18th century as other types of enamels replaced it. However, it came back to the stage in 19th century because there was a trend to copy Kangxi style porcelains in 19th century, the ritualism in late Qing dynasty. Due to the economic crisis during this period of time, the artists couldn't afford to apply as much enamel as in Kangxi period. Hence, the trick to tell the age is by feeding the thickness of the enamel. Also, in the earlier pieces, the blue color often came from the underglazed cobalt. The blue enamel was only introduced in the very late 17th century. This is also a sign of Kangxi period porcelain. Here with me are 2 different Wucai porcelains. One is from 17th century and the other one is from 19th century. Are you able to tell which one is which? Leave a comment. Wucai porcelain were produced for imperial court for quite a few decades during the Kangxi reign. However, the emperor soon became bored with only 5 colors. In the early 18th century, more precious enamels were imported from Europe and immediately were used on the imperial porcelains for emperor use only. Those imported enamels were then called Falang in Chinese. They were often used on very dedicated made eggshell porcelains, and artists would show off their skills with such prestigious enamels on porcelain, almost like painting oil on canvas. The Falang porcelain were extremely rare during 18th century, and any pieces during this period of time can worth millions of pounds. By studying the imported enamels from Europe, the ceramic makers in Yongzheng very quickly invented the Famille rose, which is also called Fencai in Chinese. It was the local counterpart for Falang, but the price is much cheaper. The biggest difference between Fencai and Falang is that Fencai mixes the glassy white with the other enamel colors, which gives artists the control of the gradient. Due to the cheap price and more vivid painting, Fencai dominated the porcelain market during the 18th century and 19th century, replacing Wucai and Falang. Now I have two examples of Fencai and Falang. The Fencai enamels are mixed with glassy white, hence the texture are very smooth and glassy. There's a clear gradient from green color to white, and that's a very important characteristic of Fencai or Famille rose. This little vase is a 19th century Falang enamel. Well, obviously I can't really afford the earlier pieces. Look at the leaves here. The bubble effect is the key identifier for Falang enamel. The reason why it is there is because it is almost like oil boiled in a high temperature. And there's no glassy white on the top of it. So the difference is the smoothness. Fencai stayed as the mainstream till the late 19th century, when Qianjiang enamel came to the stage. The Qianjiang enamel was invented based on Fencai, or Famille rose. But instead of applying glassy white, Qianjiang enamel tend to have more ink black tone. It looks very thin layer on the porcelain and was perfect match for Chinese traditional ink brush painting. If you compare a Fencai to oil painting, then Qianjiang is the watercolor painting. In 20th century, there were many masterpieces in Qianjiang porcelains, and some of them can also worth tens of thousands of pounds. This charger in my hand, however, is made from mid-20th century, but unfortunately I can't find any signature from any master artist. Alright, hopefully you are now familiarized with all different kinds of Chinese enameled porcelains. You can now look around for some good pieces. Feel free to leave a comment if you got any question. So see you in the next video. Bye!